Yeah, for the introvert and extroverts, we were talking about this earlier. They some of us are like really borderline, like maybe extrovert and introvert, like very similar. And like I'm an introvert and so is Lisa, but we like talking on the golf course. And
Okay. So we're going to dive into some of this. Okay. So first off, let's talk about, so we have four main facets. And the first one we'll dive into is extrovert and introvert. And this will start kind of clearing it up for everybody. But before we get into those facets, okay, we got to understand what our brains are always doing. Everybody does all of these things. Okay. So everybody has extroverted aspect and an introverted aspect. Everybody has a sensing and intuitive aspect, a thinking and feeling, and a judging and perceiving aspect. But like your hand in this, one is dominant and is going to lead you more predictably to more success throughout your life. The other is going to be more inferior, kind of like using your left hand. Okay. So if somebody threw a basketball to me and asked me to dribble, or I did that with you, you naturally put in your dominant hand and start dribbling. Okay. We just neglect kind of that function. And this is kind of what happens with us when we're growing up mentally. Okay. So what happens? These become habitual ways of responding to the world. They become more interesting ways to us at whatever level as a kid. And they get developed by ourselves and by the environment and by having successes. Okay. So we have all of these things, but one's dominant because that one that's more interesting to us as a young kid and the things that we're more drawn towards gets developed more. And the other one's inferior because it doesn't get focused on. The other one gets focused on more. So it gets built up and it ultimately becomes a mental strength. You can certainly develop both aspects of yourself. And I would encourage everybody to do that generally in life. We want to bring balance and develop these qualities. However, when it comes to performance, your dominant function will always make you the most relaxed. And so that's going to take us into our peak performance state much more than developing, let's say, our left hand. Again, think of it in a basketball scenario. I can definitely have to develop my left hand to play well. But when the game is on the line, would you want me shooting and dribbling with my right hand, or do you want me shooting and dribbling with my left hand? We're going to lean to our strengths. And that's why our golf program is developing the strengths. So we do all of the things, ladies. But there is going to be a sliding scale all the time on which one you lean on more and which one is going to create either more mental activity, causing you to kind of stretch in life, and what's going to end up leading into stress. So introverts do talk and can be quite talkative people, okay? Because we're always engaging with the outer world and the inner world. It's just introverts prefer to mainly spend more of their time in their inner space. They're going to open up with people who they're friends with. They're going to open up about topics they feel comfortable with at first. And introverts can become quite talkative with people that they've taken time to develop a good bond with. But if you went into a social situation with different and new people, the introvert may be more inclined to be a little bit more private and socially reactive. That might be more of their natural state and waiting for people to introduce themselves. If they found out that there was a shared interest, well, it's a good conversation and introverts are likely to really open up. Extroverts, though, they'll talk all the time and they're going to talk to process their thinking. Okay. And introverts, it's more than just social when we think of extroverted and introvert. Social dynamic part of it is only a facet of it.
Yes.
It's, pardon?
Yeah, I'm glad you're going there.
When you look at what Carl Jung, who kind of was the one who started typology back over 100 years ago, 1920s or 1921, he talked about extroversion and introversion and started setting these qualities. And he was talking about it. Psychic energy was what he used. It's really your mental energy. And it's the direction of that mental energy, where you prefer to put it. Does that make sense? So extroverted people, generally speaking in life, prefer to put it out into this objective world around them, to objects, to people, to projects, and they process information through talking about it. So a good activity after any golf lesson for extroverts in here, go have a discussion with somebody. Go talk about what you just did with your parents. It'll help you to process and formulate all the things that you have done. Introverts, though, prefer to reflect on things. They prefer to process things fully internally before putting out an answer. They'll finish their thinking because they process things a little bit differently than an extrovert does. But it's more mental energy in the direction of that mental energy than it is social dynamics. Does that make sense?
Yes.
And talking, if you think about it, is putting things out into the world. So extroverts tend to be a little bit more talkative. Introverts tend to be a little bit more reserved. So they just tend to conserve their energy a little bit more. Because the ironic thing is as the introvert puts out energy and talks even to their friends, they're depleting their energy. And so there's still going to be a point in the round, if you're real talkative, where you may need to pull you back or step back to get your focus or to realign with some of your responsibilities on the golf course. Because there could be a drainage of energy as an introvert when you're around your friends or people you know. Does that make sense, ladies?
Yes, it does.
Did that answer the question?
Yes.
Yeah.
And so with all of these things, there's an ebb and a flow. Certainly, I like to engage in the outer world, but I definitely like my downtime. Like if I'm going to get to work, I kind of like to get into my own world for a little bit. But me working by myself and quietly, ladies, it's draining. Like eventually I start getting drained and overwhelmed. And what do you think I want to do? I get up and go talk to somebody. I go see the dog, pet the dog, go talk to my wife. I get on the phone, and what am I trying to do as an extrovert? I'm trying to rebuild the energy because the alone time is draining for me over time. Doesn't mean I can't do it. Doesn't mean I don't like to do it, but it will deplete my mental energy. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So if you're on the borderline, what you want to look at is like after a really long day of interacting, right? Let's say after a long day of school and then a long day of practice, how do you get your batteries recharged, right? Do you like to have that downtime, that time to recharge, the alone time? Then you're probably a little bit more on the introverted side. Doesn't mean that I wouldn't want alone time, but I still would recharge my batteries by kind of getting out and doing something different. Maybe playing some video games, putting my energy out. Even if I'm quiet, I'm still kind of directing my energy outward. And that's where you want to kind of look towards if you're having any questions about it. Everybody good with their type though so far in E and I?
Yes.
Yeah.
Now, this is one of the easiest ones, ladies, again, to just bring to the table, okay? And sometimes if you're an extrovert, do a little more talking out on the golf course. If you're an introvert, you can spend some downtime. Make sure you're not like using too much energy getting caught up in the outer world. But ladies, if you're introverted players and you're getting too caught up in an environment, what the course is, what the girls are doing around you, all these things, it's a clear indication, start getting back into your own game. If you're an introvert, pay more attention to your steps, yourself. If you're an extrovert and you're getting stressed, that's the time, get out of your bubble, interact, start talking again, start using your body and expressing yourself a little differently, and it'll get you shifting. These mental shifts relax your brain. And when your brain relaxes, ladies, guess what happens? The golf swing comes right back, just like going back onto the driving range.